Hello again. Today's story is about a freezing cold winter and something that happened on the way home from school. Throwing snowballs in the bleak midwinter. When Julia was little and lived with her family in the middle of the countryside, she went to a school which was also in the middle of the countryside. It was called Brockhampton County Primary School, and the name was printed on all the exercise books that the children were given to use. Every morning, Julia and her sisters had to climb up a steep hill through the bracken to get to the bus stop. It was hard work for little legs, especially when they had to hurry in case they missed the bus. In winter time, it was sometimes icy and slippery. There were frozen puddles covered with ice that squeaked when they stepped on it. The bus stop was next to a giant oak tree which was hundreds of years old. It was so big you would need 3 grown men to put their arms all the way around its trunk. The ground underneath it was covered with acorns and acorn cups and leaves which had fallen off the tree. At school, there was a morning assembly where all the children came together in the hall to sing hymns and recite the creed. The hymns were mostly written 100 years before by some very religious people. Some of the hymns were about the beauty of the world, some were about harvest. There was one about winter, which went like this: "In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan. Earth was hard as iron, water like a stone." Every school child got a little bottle of milk supplied by the government to help them grow big and strong. The bottles were delivered in crates every morning, and at break time they were brought in to the classrooms. If it was frosty, the milk might be frozen, almost like ice cream. The teacher would have to stand the bottles next to the stove so that they could thaw. Going home from school, Julia and her sisters had to walk because there was no bus. Sometimes other children would walk with them. It took a long time to walk home because they liked to play on the way. The boys especially liked to play more vigorous games, kicking things and throwing things. One day, Julia was walking home through the snow with a bunch of other children when one of them started a snowball fight. Julia was not very good at throwing, and she didn't want to get her hands wet making snowballs because it would make her fingers hurt. So she watched. Then suddenly Julia spotted a ready-made snowball lying on the ground. On an impulse, she picked it up and threw it into the group of children. She was very surprised when it hit one of the boys on the back of the head. And then her surprise turned to dismay, because the boy started crying. Boys didn't often cry if they could help it. "Ow!" he cried. "That hurt! That's not fair! Someone's throwing stones!" He made such a fuss that the other children crowded round in sympathy. He kept complaining about being hit by a stone, and Julia didn't understand it because what she had thrown was a snowball, not a stone. She didn't like to say anything in case they all turned on her. She hadn't meant to hurt the boy. Then she saw the snowball on the ground and she picked it up again. It was not a stone, but it was not a soft, crumbly snowball either. It had been lying on the path for so long in the frost that it had turned to ice. It was just like in the hymn they sang: "Water like a stone."